Some of those greatly loved, expensive parables like the prodigal son or Good Samaritan might actually come from early church or even from evangelist himself. Dear friends, Jesus told parables. There is no doubt about it. It was his way of teaching. Parables are perfect way of talking in an accessible way about serious matters of theology, ethics, and politics, sometimes all that at once. And while reading the Gospels, one can observe there are clearly two different categories of parables in respect of their length. There are short parables, almost aphorisms, proverbs, or anecdotes, 1, 2, up to 4 composite sentences. And then there are parables composed of many sentences, 10, 12, some as long as half a page. For instance, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When someone finds it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. That is one of the shortest parables. On the other hand, the parable of the prodigal son goes for 22 verses. And there are other similarly long parables about the Last Judgment, for instance, 16 verses, or Lazarus and the rich man with 13 verses. So there are two clear categories: short pointed stories up to 5 verses with average 3, and a longer narrative and more elaborate stories from 7 to 22 verses with an average about 10 verses. I am personally inclined to perceive those shorter parables as being recorded almost directly from the early oral tradition, and that oral tradition might be even responsible for shortening them. While the longer parables followed a different path. They clearly underwent more substantial traditional, theological, and even literary reworking, elaboration, and expansion. All of them might go back to Jesus. We don't know. With the short ones, it is easier to imagine and trace that. With the longer parables, it is more difficult to see what is Jesus and what are his disciples and even evangelists. Some of those greatly loved, expensive parables like the prodigal son or Good Samaritan might actually come from early church or even from evangelist himself. And that is something not everyone might know about the biblical parables. Join us this Sunday. We will listen to and be guided by one of those literary parables, which is unique to Gospel of Luke, the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. It might be unique to Luke, but was not unique to Jesus or the early church. There are strong indications it was lifted up and reworked from an early Jewish theological folklore, and possibly even from older Egyptian morality tale.